what we have discussed.
So අපි server manager එකට එන තැනට වෙනකම් විතරයි කතා කරේ. මේ හරියට වෙනකම්.
Right, okay. Now you all know what are the prerequisites that you check before you start any operating system installation, right? So we have discussed it, and we have this. Now you know there are multiple ways to install operating system, right? So out of these number of methods, so we use most easiest way to install operating system and most common way to install operating system method, that is install operating system using ISO. So that's we have discussed, and we have gone through the installation installation wizard that we need to follow when we install a Windows operating system. So we have discussed each and every I think each and every display lines. So during the installation, so we have discussed how we partition and what is the minimum partition requirement, and how we decide the partition size. Those are the things we have discussed, right? So then in addition to that, actually we have done couple of post configuration stuff we have performed. Now you all know, right? So like I explained last class, so a main utility and main screen that you guys need to use when it comes to basic configuration, it is server manager. This is most powerful tool that you can use for each and every administration task that you need to perform. So this is the most powerful tool. So when if you want to kind of perform the basic configuration, you just go to the local server, right? So because we can use the server manager to manage a couple of multiple operating systems, multiple remote operating systems. We will discuss it later, how we use one single server manager to manage your entire Windows environment in multiple VM virtual machines like that. So but up to now, so we stick into the basic configuration. So I explain how to change the computer name, and if you want to change the domain, right? So and if you want to integrate this newly installed VM with your existing domain controller, so you can use this work group link and go to the change, and you can add this to the domain which you already installed.
All right. So I don't know where I interrupted, right? So but so this is since we have discussed server manager we use for manage the entire server, right? Not only the server, but also you can use this server manager to manage multiple servers, and all the Windows servers in your environment. You can use one single server manager to manage your entire Windows installations, right? So we'll discuss it later, how we integrate the other virtual machines or virtual servers or any physical servers, and how we manage through the server managers, right? So like I explained you, we have I think we have, now you know how to change the host name, how to add a particular host to the domain, existing domain. existing domain. So you just go to the work group and click this link, and you can go to the change, and you can give the domain existing domain name here, and you can add this server to the existing domain if you have a domain controller in place, right? Currently, our environment doesn't have a domain controller, so we will configure the domain controller first, and then we'll see how we can add the other servers to other server or a client machine to the domain controller, right? So the remote desktop, in the sense it's disabled right now. That means if you want to remotely manage this computer, you should enable this. If you want to let this let this server to manage remotely using RDP protocol, so you have to enable remote desktop service. Right? Remote management by default it's enabled. That means if you want to add integrate this server with any other server manager, and in order to manage centrally, so you can enable it, and you can integrate this with remote remote server. But currently this is going to be our primary server. So still we don't want to integrate this with any other servers. Let's see in the future lessons. Let's see how we can integrate this with the server manager, right? So anyway, right. So if you want to create the IP address, give the IP address. You just want to go to the IP Ethernet 0. So since I have one, since my server have one Ethernet card, so it listed as a Ethernet 0. If you have a multiple Ethernet card, so it will listed as Ethernet 0, 1, 2, so on, right? So you have to prior to configure the IP address, you have to choose appropriate Ethernet address, Ethernet card, right? So Ethernet card, and select the link. So once you create the link, it will pop up all the Ethernet adapters which was installed on your server, right? So since I don't have multiple cards, since I have only one Ethernet card, I have to go select this Ethernet card and right click it and go to the properties, and you have to select after that you have to select the internet protocol version 4, because I am going to configure the IPv4 address. If you want to configure the IPv6 address, you have to go and select the IPv6 version 6 here, and but I am going to configure the version 4 address, right? So select the version 4 and go to the properties. I think you may all know how to do it, right? So but anyway, once the wizard comes, configuration wizard comes, so it you can select two options, right? So one is obtain IP address automatically, or you can define your own IP address for this computer, right? Obtain IP address automatically, we can use only we have a DHCP server in place. So DHCP server is the service which can give the network related configuration to the other machines, right? So we will discuss how to install and configure the DHCP server in future lessons, but for the today we don't have a DHCP server in place, so we have only this server, right? So so I'm going to configure the manual IP address. Prior to that, so tell me what is the length of IP address?
In IPv4, sir, 32-bit.
Okay.
IPv6 for 1 to 8 bits, sir.
Yeah, that's answer is correct. So, what is the subnet mask? What is the responsibility of the subnet mask? Why we define the subnet mask?
Identify the network.
Yeah, answer is correct, right? So, when it comes to the IP address, we can find two portions. What are these two portions? One portion is network portion, other one is host portion, right?
Host portion.
Yeah, that's correct. So, if you want to find out the network address, why we require the network address?
Identify the specific network, sir.
Yeah, identify the specific network. Can you just tell me, so if I give you, uh, according to this, you have a 4 IP address, right? So subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. So I have listed 4 IP address. Tell me which IP address belongs to the same network. Assume the first one is A, second one is B, third one is C, and fourth one is D. Which IP addresses are belong to the same network?
First one is one network, sir. Second and third one is another network, and third network is also another network. There are 3 networks.
Is there any other guesses?
No.
Yeah, that is correct. So like you all know, right? So IP address consists of 4 parts, right? So one, the 4 part in the sense 4 sectors, right? So one sector consists of 8 bits, right? So the total length of IP address would be 32, right? So if subnet mask notify that 255.255.255 or 0, or we can define it as a /24. That /24 means the first 24 bits belong to the network, right? The rest of belong to the host, right? If subnet mask notify as the 255.255.255.0, that means the one parts of the IP address consists of, like I said, consists of 8 bits. The maximum number that which we can define in the binary would be 255. So in a binary, the maximum number is all one, right? So when it's convert into the decimal, that would be 255. That means that particular portion, so entire particular portion belongs to the network, right? So the same notification, the same meaning brings the either /24 or a 255.255.255.0. So I think you may know how to do the Vlsm. So variable subnet mask. So if the subnet mask is 24, 23, 22, 21. So I think you have to know how to find out the network address and the first portion of the IP address, and how to define the broadcast address, and how to define the network address. So on, right? So you have to aware, right? So anyway, right. Then the next thing we have to configure is default gateway, right? What does mean default gateway? Why we need a default gateway?
If our LAN has not one of IP address contain, we have to forward traffic to default gateway. Most probably, default gateway is considered as router.
Any guesses? So do you know how the data flow is generated? Assume if my server needs to connect to the another server, how the data flow happens. So assume, so right, let's see. Hello, hope you can hear me, right?
Yes, sir. We can.
Sorry, something went wrong my computer. So anyway, right, so let me explain how to traffic flow as the, so give me a 1 minute, so I'll log again. Guys, so I think something went the Zoom account. So let's start, right? So can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Right. Can you explain how, assume there are two servers which brings, assume this is newly bought, these servers are newly bought. So, and I'll connect it to the newly bought switch, right? So let's say it is C, right? So can you explain how, if assume if A wants to connect B, right? So how the data flow goes. So assume this is 192.168.1.1 and this is 1. Right? These two A and B servers I bought recently, and switch is also I bought recently, right? So I just install operating system on A and B and configure the IP address 192.168.1.1 for A, 1.2 for B, right? And I want to connect to B using command line. I type ping 192.168.1.2. How the data flows go?
ඒක සර් මුලින්ම යනවා ස්විච් එකට ගිහිල්ලා එයා බලනවා එයාගේ කැම් ටේබල් එකේ අදාළ IP එක මේ MAC ඇඩ්‍රස් එක තියෙනවා අදාළ port එකේ එයාගේ එන segment එකේදී නැති නිසා මුලින්ම ඒ කියන්නේ අලුතෙන්ම ගත්ත ස්විච් එක නේ
ස්විච් එකට යනවා කියන්නේ ස්විච් එකට දෙන්නේ කවුද? කොහොමද ස්විච් එකට දෙන්නේ? මේක these two switches are newly bought.
so එතන එක ස්විච් එකනේ
Yeah, not a switch, both servers. Newly bought and press. I have installed press operating system. So how he knows where to go to the C and no? How he knows?
මුලින්ම මම හිතන්නේ ආප් මැසේජ් එකක් ජෙනරේට් කරලා බ්‍රෝඩ්කාස්ට් කරනවා අයිඩෙන්ටිෆයි කරගන්න. අදාළ තියෙන.
So, but any other guesses? Is there any other guesses? Answer is not exactly correct, but it's something, right? So how it's connect is, assume if you if A needs to go to the B, what happens is once you type the ping line and generate a packet, start to generate a packet. So what is the protocol we use for ping?
ICMP sir.
Yeah, ICMP, right? So the destination port would be this is the data, right? So we encapsulate it with layer 4 tag. What is the layer 4 tag consist?
Segment sir.
No, this is the port numbers, port details. So the ICMP port I can. What is the ICMP port? What is the port number that ICMP use? Huh? What is the port number?
As I remember, port 7.
Wrong. So what would be the port? Any guesses? The port number is? Yeah, you are correct. Port number is 7, right? So then the source port would be 7 and the destination port would be 7, right? So after that, what the next stack is L2 and L3 encapsulation, right? Now we have completed L2. L3, what are the L3 header content?
IP addresses.
IP address is A's IP address and destination would be what? The B's IP address. Then it encapsulate with L2 tag. So what are the information consist of this L2 tag?
MAC addresses.
Yeah, MAC address. How the server find out the destination MAC? So for the L2 header, we require the source MAC address as well as the destination MAC address, right? How server find the destination's MAC address? If it is
According to
recently
the destination IP address, it will share broadcast message name as ARP. In address resolution protocol, it will identify for some specific IP address. This is the MAC address. It is, if it is not the same LAN, that means local area network, as the MAC address, it will set up for default gateway MAC address.
Yeah, that's correct. So answer is correct. So what happened is if operating system maintain one table, we call it as a ARP table, right? So that is the that is a table which contain the IP address and the MAC address. So MAC address of the IP address on the network, right? So if this server needs to connect with any other server, so what happened is we know the IP address which we going to contact, right? So what operating system do is operating system go and if operating system wants to go to reach this IP address, he has to find out the MAC address. So related MAC address he found out through the ARP table, right? So he go and ask from the ARP table, I have to go to this IP address. So tell me what is the MAC address. If ARP table does not contain that particular IP address, MAC address, right, for the particular IP address, so what he do is he start the broadcast, right? So once he start the broadcast, the broadcast receive all the peripherals which is connected to the which are in the same network, right? So broadcast goes to the same networks peripherals, right? So only the particular IP will response for the broadcast. So once the broadcast comes, he update the ARP table IP address against the MAC address. So that's how he learned the MAC address. So once he knew the MAC address, he entered it to the destination MAC address as a destination MAC address and encapsulate it to the L2 tag and send it to the wire, right? It's a physical layer, right? So physical layer goes to the switch, and switch can only construct up to which layer, which packet.
If it is normal manageable switch is data link layer, but there are some switch available in layer 3 also.
Yeah, if it is a layer 3 function, happens only when we configure the switch port as a routing, right? Unless otherwise, if it is a switch port, it can construct the packet up to layer 2, right? So he can read only the layer 2 text, right? So he know only about the layer 2, right? If it is, since if it is a if it is the first time that received this packet, so what happened is, so he open up to the L2 packet and check the destination MAC address where this packet needs to be delivered, right? So where he find out the port number which is connected to that particular destination MAC address. How he find out the port where he needs to go out to deliver this packet?
You means a switch port?
Yeah, so otherwise.
Yes, sir, yes. It's identified by source traffic.
Yeah, that is fine. That is fine. So switch learns from the source MAC addresses, right, of the packets. So my question is, so assume switch receive some packet, right, need to be delivered for somewhere else. So for the B, according to my scenario, it's B, right? So switch received the packet from A where he needs to go to the B, right? So now switch has a responsibility to deliver this packet to the exactly B, right? So how he decide where the destination B is located?
This MAC address table in switch, and it also
Yeah, so
calls
it should
cam
maintain
table.
the MAC address table. So he goes, the MAC address table contain port number associated with the MAC address, right? So if this is the first time that switch needs to deliver some packet to B, how he identify the MAC address where it's connected?
It also share some broadcast message called unknown unicast. So in that case, to all connected port, it share broadcast message. The destination.
Does it send the broadcast packet to all the connected port?
No, sir, not all the ports except the incoming traffic. That means source port.
Yeah, if the particular MAC address doesn't MAC address and port does not contain on its MAC address table, what he do is he start the broadcast and send it out over the port except the port which that message receive, right? So that's how it's work, right? So he update once the particular response comes for that particular broadcast, then he update its MAC address table with the associate port and the MAC address, right? So how that's how, because the MAC switch learns from the source IP address. So what happens if A and B is in a different network? If it is in a different network, like you explained, so the operating system check first thing operating system check is whether the destination IP is in within my network or any other network, right? If it is within the network, then only he went go and check the out table and find out the MAC address, associate MAC address, right? If it is not in his network, right? So what he do is he find out the default gateway's MAC address and handed over this packet to the default gateway, right? Once the packet receives the default gateway, then only the default gateway is a layer 3 devices, either router or a layer 3 switch that is fine, or a firewall that can be read the layer up to layer 3, right? So once the packet receives the router, he will be able to construct the packet up to L3 packet, L3 header, right? So he can read the IP address, then he can find out what is the hope that he has to deliver this packet in order to deliver to the device, right? So that's how it goes. So that's why we call MAC address will be changed hop to hop. So right. So destination MAC could be changed, but destination IP address of the packet will not change until the packet receives the correct destination, right? But the MAC address of the destination MAC address of the L2 header will be changed by hop to hop, right? So I think you all have a clear understanding about this. So, okay, let's go to our lesson. So here. Right now, I have configured. Right. Then the prepared DNS server. What is the DNS server? What does DNS server do?
DNS stands domain name service that do domain name convert to the IP addresses, because of we cannot remember IP addresses. In that case, it will be mapped to the IP
Yeah,
address.
answer is correct. So we use DNS server to resolve IP address to the name and name to the IP address. That is the responsibility of the DNS server. We will discuss how DNS server configure and what is the response, how it's work, and how we configure the DNS server and how to manage the DNS server in future lessons, right? So according to my scenario, I don't have a DNS server right now, but I'm going to install DNS server on this particular machine, so I can give the same IP address of this server as a DNS server, right? So alternative DNS server means, so once the primary DNS server goes down, so we configured the secondary DNS server for the backup. So if primary server will not be available, secondary server can do the job behalf of primary server, right? So that's how it is. It works. So now I think all the IP configuration has been done, right? So we have completed. Once you successfully completed, you could see the IP address which we configured in front of the appropriate Ethernet card, right? So and all the basic configuration and this is a Windows update, so you can turn on the update or turn off. But so in the industry, we don't enable Windows update on each and every service. What we do is we have to normally we configure the WSUS server instead of enabling Windows update on each and every server, right? So what WSUS server do is download all the versions, all the updates from the Microsoft site and keep it in your environment. And if some particular VMs wants to gets update, what he do is he has to contact the WSUS server. So we'll discuss how to install and configure WSUS server in the future lessons as well. So then you can configure it. So the next thing you have to be careful is the time zone. So you have to configure the time zone, appropriate time zone according to your environment, because time zone is very sensitive if you use the DNS service or a Active Directory domain controller service. Right, so make sure both AD and Active Directory and your client machine are connected to the same NTP server, right? Right, okay, those are the basic configuration that we need to perform, right? So the next thing we need to check is, so if you do some kind of a troubleshooting, the most important tool is go to the tools and computer management, right? When it comes to the troubleshooting, this is the most important tool that you have to aware. So if you want to see some kind of a event, so you can go to the event viewer and all the Windows logs which is related to the application. So log into the here, and security related logs comes to here. So if there is some kind of a critical errors, so you have to so since I have some kind of a critical errors, what you have to do, you open the alerts. So you open the critical alarm, and all the alarms should have a event ID. So you can search this event ID on a Google or a Microsoft site. So then it will give you the workaround that you have to do, right? And it will give you the description why this kind of a error occurred, and all the stuff is in the KB articles of the Windows. You can find the KB article of the related event ID. Then you can follow the troubleshooting steps that they recommend, right? So this is what it is important, as well as the next thing is the device manager. Right? Device manager show all the device drivers details. If some particular device drivers may not detected, it shows as a question mark. So what you have to do is you have to, in order to gain the proper performance and gain the proper output of the devices, so you have to have install proper device drivers, right? So and the storage, Disk management is another useful utility, right? It will show you the disk related details, right? If you want to, this is the way it shows, right? So disk 0, I have only one disk, so that's what it says, disk 0. So basic disk, it is a basic partition, and we have installed the operating system on top of the disk 0, right? This is the first disk that has been detected by the operating system. So that's why it detected as a 0, right? If you have another disk, it will detect as a disk 2, disk 1. And if you have multiple disks, it may detect it as 0, 1, 2, and 3, so on, right? So I think you all know how to create the partitions on top of the my disk, right? So we have an unallocated partition. I have already allocated 40, almost 40 GB for seed partition when we do the implementation, and I have another 20 GB of free capacity. So I'm going to convert this into the partition. It's pretty easy. Just right click on the partition and select new simple volume. Once you select it, it will direct you to the new simple volume wizard, creation wizard. So just follow the steps it will show. So it will specify the volume size. You have to give the volume size and volume size which you are going to create this partition. I am going to create use entire free space for this partition. So I have free space of 21,000 MB almost. So I use entire volume for my new partition. Select it, press next. Right, then it will ask the file system. So what is the file system? Why we require the file system? Hello.
So, can you repeat the question, sir?
Yeah. So the next screen shows you have to select the file system, right? So what is the file system? What is the responsibility of the file system? You have to select the file system here, right? So why we require the file system? The file system
Hard disk store කරන්න standard video.
මොකද කියන්නේ? file system any other guesses? So what is the responsibility of the file system?
Manage the data which we have in our hard disk or devices.
What are the file system you know? What are any other file systems you know?
FAT, that means file allocation table, and
what are the file system we use when the Linux and
XFS file system, ext4 file system also.
okay. Yeah, answer is correct. So any other guesses? In the Linux world, we have ext4, ext2, ext1, XFS, So XFS, those are the file system we can use when it comes to the Linux, right? So for the Windows, what are the file system? What are the file system that we can use? The file system, the most popular one is NTFS. So the next one is Resaline FS. The latest one is Resaline FS, right? The FAT32 is earlier one. So NTFS is the most popular file system in the Windows, right? So why we require the file system? That is, we need to know, right? The file system is the one. Before we learn the file system, tell me what is inside of the hard disk? What you can see inside the hard disk according to your understanding?
Some magnetic plates.
Yeah, some magnetic places like this, right? So this is the disk, right? So and needle, right? And this will be divided into we call it small part, we call it as a sector. I think so. You all are with me, right? Right. This is FP2 plus plated disk, right? So what happen is, so if you want to write the data, that means how you can read the data on the disk. So definitely, if particular operating system, this is, assume this is OS, right? OS want to retrieve some data which is reside on the hard disk, somewhere of the hard disk. What he do is he send the request to the hard disk. We call it then operating system says to the controller, I need the data on which is saved on this particular location of the hard disk. So what he get the instruction. So what he do is this is rotatable, right? So you all know this is rotate, right? So this is rotated. The needle is stand in a single location and it's move into the x-axis, right? So what needle do is, so he try to find out the location. So how he find out the location is, the disk is rotated. So same problem occurred again. So can you hear me, guys? Sorry, I think same problem occurred in my screen. So, but anyway, we'll continue, right? So how we how needle find out the location which the data is stored is, the disk is rotated and needle is go through the axis and so once the particular sector comes to the needle go and touch the sector and find out the FE2 plus pattern which is inside the sector, right? So then it send needle send, this is the pattern, right? So who construct this pattern into the human readable format? It is the file system, right? The file system, responsibility of the file system is to manage the hard disk data on the hard disk.
Recording stopped.